Okay, guys, I think we are now live on Nomberg Law Live, our Tuesday show. A little bit later than normal, but that is A-OK considering who our guest is today. My friend Johnnie Finch from North Carolina. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here, man. Those legal challenges were just grinding this morning. It seemed like every 15 minutes I needed another 15 minutes, but I'm just so happy you had me up here today.
Well, you're working hard for your clients today, and I'm glad that we were able to push this back because I've been wanting to get you on the show for a while, and I'm just glad to see your face and hear you a little bit.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. How was your holiday weekend? Did you get to do anything?
To be perfectly honest, uh, we've been out for quite a bit, for quite a long time now. And so with the holiday weekend, it really kind of just was like another day. I mean,
You know
we've
you're
had like a
so
90-day holiday weekend. Yes, sir.
you
So it was a day off and it was nice. And obviously I saw the cookouts and everybody was doing, but I mean, it's kind of regular Monday.
it's so right, Johnny. I had to look at the calendar just to remind myself that yesterday was Monday. It was a holiday. Now it's a very meaningful holiday in our
Oh yeah.
country's history. So I was observant and mindful of that. But I will tell you, after working yesterday for the morning time, I felt like it was time to go exercise. So one of my daughters and I found a trail, and it was Monday. But you're right, it's just not the normal Memorial Day weekend. But I'm glad you were able to do some things and enjoy the day and the weekend. Well, guys, if you don't know Johnny, you really should get to know him. I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. We're in the same couple of online lawyer groups, think tanks, if you will, and one of our leaders is just joined us from the OC, Mitch Jackson. Good morning, Mitch. Thanks for joining in for a few minutes. As well as a buddy of mine, Madeline Rosenthal. Hey, Madeline, hope you're doing well. Johnny, before we jump into some good subjects, tell folks what you do in North Carolina and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm from northeastern North Carolina, and I am a criminal defense attorney. Uh, for the most part, my practice focuses on drug offenses, and been doing a lot of work here lately with the COVID and the coronavirus. Was just a lot of bond issues have been really big this year because obviously there's a push to try to, and there should be a rightful push to try to make sure that these bonds are reasonable, and if people are in jail for things that, slaps on the wrist or things that would not be violent or sexual nature, we want to make sure that those people are not in the jail because obviously we want to look out for workers. And I hope what happens with the system kind of rethinking itself based off of the fact that, if these bonds can be reduced going into the future, why not continue doing that and get some of these people out of jail? So a lot of my work over the last 90 days have been bonds and dealing with those.
And for those of you who don't know of Johnny's writing, we're going to get into his book in just a minute, but you'll notice that Johnny's got a suit on, unlike yours truly, because Johnny was working hard today. Were you in court virtually or actually today?
I was actually in court today. This is probably the fourth time in the last 3 or 4 months. So it took me a little longer this morning. I had to figure out how to match the shirt and tie again. I don't know if I did a good job. It was, getting in the car, driving to court. This is like feeling like I'm a rookie attorney again, going back to court and figuring out how to address the court. And I tell you, when you're at home with your kids, and I've been there, I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and you're playing and you're talking with your kids, you kind of you kind of lose your adult conversation at times. So you want to hug everybody in court like you hug your kids. I mean, sometimes it's fine. I'm in the South, so we do a lot of hugging, but we definitely want to keep the social distancing as well. But it was cool getting back. I'm ready to get back to action.
Well, that's good. Did the suit fit okay? Have you dropped some pounds? You gained some
Yeah,
weight?
I actually did drop some weight. First part of the corona situation, I was doing a nice little regimen. Middle way, I kind of fell off, so I'm trying to get back. But it's let's see, yeah, I got a little space.
There we go. Oh, yeah. There we
Yeah,
go.
face.
There we go. Well, you do look sharp, Johnny, and I know that your client
Thank you.
was happy you were there fighting for him today. Let's stay on that topic for just a minute. Different parts of the country, the court systems in each state are doing things a little bit differently. We are just now getting back to a little bit of in person, but most of our court hearings, and again, depending on what type of a matter it is, criminal versus a civil, emergency versus not an emergency, most of what I do is not criminal work. I do civil work, work comp, social security, et cetera. So most of my hearings and things have been on Zoom, kind of like what we're doing, or they're on just regular telephone. Haven't had any in person. But it's a different matter when you're dealing with criminal cases. Have you attended Zoom like hearings in the past for criminal matters, or has everything been in person? Kind of tell the audience a little bit about how you're dealing with that.
So in North Carolina, what they initially did was anything that was not bond related, where if a person is actually locked up and needs to make a cash bond, then they push those matters off. And those were the immediate matters that the Chief Justice said that we had to hear. Unfortunately, between the court and a person that's in jail, it's very difficult to work a Zoom situation, because there would have to be me, then the jail would have to actually have someone there and they do have those services there. I think they thought it was easier just to bring them over. So we have been going to court and really just focusing on those matters. You really don't want to do one of those matters by Zoom, one, because there's the client interaction that you want to have with your client. Sometimes if you actually do have a hearing, there's an interaction that you kind of need with them. Sometimes, and a lot of times during trial, they can help you maybe with new information. And so it kind of puts your client at a handicap if they're on this audio recording with the court and the prosecutor. So that would not be the most efficient way for maybe for the state, but not for me and my client.
Sure. Well, Johnny, what about from a social distancing standpoint? Take us inside the courtroom with the court personnel and the judge and you and your client, as well as the state or county. I'm not sure what level of court you're in. How is all that working from a logistics standpoint?
Well, each county, and I'm in a kind of varies. What we've been doing for the most part is 4 to 5 clients can be in court at a time, and they check the temperature. The bailiff will check their temperature before they come in. Everybody has their mask on, and then on the outside of the courthouse, they line up. Now, they're keeping these calendars 20 and less. But the interesting thing is going to be is the Chief Justice has said that court sessions can start back at the discretion of the chief judge of our district. And so next week, what's going to happen is they're actually going to start having court. And so they're trying to divide the dockets in half or in thirds, having half a docket in the morning, half the docket in the evening. And the reality of a criminal court, depending on which county you're in, sometimes the dockets are as low as 40 or 50. But in your bigger counties, and not even in the cities like you imagine Charlotte and Durham, but even Greenville, North Carolina, you're talking about 4 courts going on at the same time, 700 on the docket. It's something that we definitely weren't ready for, but everybody, has the opportunity to kind of figure out what works. The court staff, I appreciate everything that they're doing, but it's going to be kind of tough, man. It's going to be kind of tough, man, on those bigger days, deciding if you're actually going to go, because most courthouses, the ventilation isn't the best, and most people are getting tickets. You get a speeding ticket, you got to come from another place. But the court has been very, very lenient with those situations. It hasn't been I haven't seen a situation where if accommodations had to be made that everybody wasn't kind of on board. So everybody's kind of been holding hands with it for the most part. Only issues that you really, really run again is when it comes to those bond issues on whether, something is serious enough to hold a person, because in any situation, and just like the rest homes, if the virus were to get into a jail situation, it could.
Yeah, It wouldn't take long. And Johnny, I've had a series of conversations with other lawyers who handle nursing home and retirement home community cases and dealing with the pandemic. And you're right, it doesn't take much for it to go from A to B to C. It just takes one person. But what about from you? You've described court appearances and hearings. Have you had an opportunity to try a case yet under the new parameters of the courtroom, the courthouses?
So I have in North Carolina, if your client is not given a bond within the arrest of a felony, then they are allowed to have a probable cause hearing. And that's not a jury trial, but what we do is we go in to see if there's probable cause for the arrest. And I've had about 3 of those because there's no grand juries. Grand jury is when the citizens are called in at random to decide if a case is going to be indicted, and then it goes to Superior Court. But because there's no grand juries, all of our felonies are still flooding over in district court. And what's happening is if I can't get a bond for my client, then I'm requested to have these hearings. If the standard is not met, obviously the judge is going to throw it out, which causes kind of a rift in the system because it wasn't made to work like that. The way it was intended to work was you have grand juries every so often. So if a person is in jail for a time, then they're in Superior Court and their case moves. Well, when you have 80 to 120 days, when you don't know when you can do a grand jury because of the amount of people that you need to actually pick the names, then it leaves a lot of more hearings that I'm having in district court. I actually had one this morning, and it's just very uncomfortable because on my hand, I have to make sure that my client is not getting the raw deal for the actual coronavirus, right? And then the state has an interest in making sure they want to do, and the judge is kind of torn in between the middle, like how do we really kind of work this out? Well, there's nothing. If my client is indigent, there's really nothing that we can do.
Right.
Besides have the hearing. And so, I mean, I hope that the facts aren't there and we can go ahead and try to work something out. But it's just, it's an ugly place for all industries, but especially, if you've been charged with something and you're in jail on a high bond.
It really is. It sounds in your world that all the parties involved, no matter where you're coming from, involved in these criminal matters, it's a learning process for everybody. They're just trying to make the system work the best that they can. So I applaud you and your efforts and what you're doing. And I know you're being as safe and doing the right and reasonable things. And guys, if you're just joining us, I'm talking with Johnnie Finch, who practices law in North Carolina. Johnny does criminal defense work. And what we've been talking about is how he's figuring out the system as it is now, just trying to be safe in the courthouse and maneuvering that. But Johnny, I want to pivot a little bit. I want to talk about your awesome book. You wrote it a couple of years ago, and so many of us in our online community have read it. And it really is a great read for any lawyer, for any, as you put in here, any aspiring lawyer, anybody who's thinking about going to law school. And frankly, you can substitute lawyer in Johnny's book and put other professions, because that drive that you so eloquently put in your book, it could be for any profession, as long as you have that passion. But I'm kind of stepping over this. So I want you to tell folks about your book, why you wrote it, and how these influences in here have brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, so the book is definitely took about, I say 6 years altogether. When I was in law school, which was a definite culture shock for me, I started making a little journal. I had never journaled before, but there were so many things that I was noticing, I was observing, dealing with people. It felt like a big old reality show that I had been dropped in the middle of. And so one thing there were so many new things that I was like, I'm just going to write this down, not even thinking about a book. I just wrote all the things. About every week I would write about my grades, conversations with professors, conversations with my peers, flag football, whatever was going on in my personal life. It kind of kept it all together at that particular point in time. And once I got into law practice, I was able to really, really reach out into the legal environment. We mentioned Mitch Jackson, some of his podcasts and some of his communication tips, trying to learn how to be an effective lawyer, being effective for my clients. You can say willpower, learn how to willpower as a young attorney is really, really hard. Number one, because and I think it's a great thing that this profession is very competitive, and rightfully so. You got to earn your keep no matter who you are. You just don't go into a courtroom, in a courtroom that you've never been before, even if you have been practicing 20, 25 years, if nobody knows you, you have to be able to come in and move some things in places for your client so you can be effective. And so while I was trying to learn to be effective, I was reading the books of Thurgood Marshall and Johnny Cochran, the guys that I knew from before my law career and aspired to be like. And when I was reading their tests and their trials that they were going through, I was inspired because it was very similar to my own in my first early years of practice. And I was saying, wow, these guys are great, awesome attorneys. They made it to the highest level, but I'm seeing a lot of my story in it. And I felt like it was good for me at that place to read what they were doing, because it let me know that I wasn't in a place no one else had been. And so at that particular point in time, what I wanted was a junior version of their story. I didn't want to wait until I had been practicing for 25 years to try to remember the things or the keys that would help someone if they were aspiring to be an attorney or being in the middle. Obviously, you lose the emotion. And that's one thing that I did learn from going back and reading my journal, which it captures a lot of emotion when you journal. And so I started a book probably about, I guess it's about 6 years now, just things that I learned in law school and how it kind of boiled over into law practice, different ways to present yourself, when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive, how to be efficient, all of these things that you need to know, because you never have all the facts all of the time. Sometimes you're weaker, sometimes you're stronger. And the major key was I wanted people who were going to law school and or in law school at the time, or even practicing lawyers, just to know that we're all in this together. These are the things that I've learned that have worked. And what I ended up doing was going back and taking my journal, which I wrote in law school, and it actually ended my book because it tied everything together, kind of brought it full circle for me at that time. So I think that more than anything else, and as you said, I didn't know it was for all professions, but what I figured out later on was that anytime you're going into a new place, you kind of need a rubric, something that can help you when maybe you're dealing culturally with different aspects. And if I can imagine if I went to I don't know, Alabama, maybe I'd be fine, but maybe if I went to the big city to practice law, I'm used to more of a laid-back style of law. It would be a culture shock for me. And a lot of my friends in different professional capacities have told me that it actually helps them as well. So that was the major point, just trying to have something out there that was laid out from a newer professional perspective, and definitely first generation lawyer.
Well, Johnny, I certainly applaud the efforts. It's such a great read, and I've shared it with several of my friends, and I'm putting a link to your website on the show notes here. Can people go from there to get your book, to purchase it?
Yeah, the easiest way is blacklawyerbook.com.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. I do want to welcome, Johnny, we've got a bunch of our friends here, Nick Rishwain, Nancy.
Nick actually named the book. Nick actually gave me the idea for that website, blacklawyerbook.com. That was all Nick.
Excellent. That sounds like him. And I got a couple of questions from Mitch and Nick, two different questions. What's your favorite advice that you share in the book? Is there one particular thing from here that you want to point out or share with the audience?
So the book is an evolving work for me. So when I read the page, actually read the book now, I have to read it from the perspective of where I am now. So there's a place where I found in the book when it was talking about how to cross-examine an officer, or how to make an argument in court that's unpopular at that time. For example, if And unpopular is not always not right or wrong, right? You can be unpopular, but you could be fighting for the right thing. But if the system has something that is in place that has typically been done that way, then the court will see that as right, right? So, for example, if I'm trying a case against an officer in a small county, maybe they don't have any African-American attorneys there, right? Maybe this is the first time that officer has been questioned or cross-examined by African-American. Maybe the judge is white. Maybe the prosecutor is white as well. Maybe my client is African-American. So at this particular point in time, we're put in an interesting situation, right? So how do I argue effectively without making the officer feel as though I'm not coming at him too strong, but getting the points that I need, but at the same time, effectively advocate for my client? And so it's a fine balance. I would always find it's a fine balance between letting people feel comfortable, but also being able to, as you say, will your power, when to hit the gas, when to hit the brake. You know, so I think more than anything else, just always being self-aware of who you are, what you are, and what you can do, what your strengths and weaknesses are, it's always been pretty big for me.
You know, and that's one of the keys in life, regardless if you're practicing law or just doing anything in public, is knowing how to act at the right place at the right time and doing and saying. You know, we all kind of step in the wrong place every once in a while, but just knowing what to do and when to do it is one of the successes in life. Got another question or two for you here, Johnny. Let's see. What is your favorite part of the week?
One thing.
That's leading to our next topic.
Okay.
All right. And here, before you answer, but what I want to shift to is, and I've heard you again so eloquently talk about this on maybe Mitch's or someone else's recent interviews, is that work-life balance. You've got, as you said, you've got two small children at home. You're running a law practice. You're all over the state. You're a husband. You're so many. You wear so many hats. I know you're over at your mom's house right now, but I want to get into, as you answer that question, your favorite part of the week, I want to transition into that work-life balance and how do you do it? Because it's different for everybody.
Sure. Well, the first thing I think for a solo practitioner is having a good support staff or enough support people around you, because for a solo practice, that could be as small as you and an assistant, or maybe you and a paralegal and maybe an accountant. Well, for me, it's myself, and having a strong assistant is really, 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 really big. And him or her just understanding what my workflow is, letting them know, hey, I'm in trial today. So unless it's super important, really can't talk to anybody. If and you can gauge whether you need to ask me a question or not. If somebody's calling, they need to know when they're court, they obviously just let them know that, knowing which things are important, knowing that on Sunday evenings, I go in after church normally from 5 p.m. until whenever to get ready for the week, because in a criminal practice, you're basically in court every day. So I don't get to sit down again and actually lock in. That's the time when you come in on Monday morning, whatever list you have for me, you might not have another list until the next Monday, but that's the very, very important list, because these are the things that I did on a fresh brain. When I have my fresh brain, I need you to do those things on Monday morning, understanding that go ahead and text me back or let me know that information back, because if you don't, I'll forget, right? So one is having a strong assistant. Two is, and I spoke about a time, just knowing when my stress triggers are up. If when I'm, one major key is if I have a client that I'm meeting with, let's say at 2:00, and the closer it gets to 2:00, I'm like, man, I just really don't feel like meeting with this client today. It lets me know, okay, hold up, client, everything okay, Bernard? Everything good?
I can hear you just fine.
Can you hear me?
Just keep on going.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, okay. And so if I'm not embracing, meeting a new client or talking to my client, it's like, okay, and when I get home that evening, if I'm not embracing being there with my family. Maybe I go give my kids a bath, but I don't want to talk to my wife as much. If I'm not being able to get up in the morning at 5:45 or 6 o'clock when I'm setting my alarm, all of these let me know that I need to take some time off. And that's why I've been so thankful for not the actual situation that we're in, but the result of that has been a significant time off to kind of restructure and think about how I can, how do I want my life to be next year this time? This 90 days has given me a great opportunity to just kind of think about like the decisions I made during this 90 to 120 days is going to directly affect what my life looks like next year at this time, which I want to be completely balanced and as less stressful as possible as we can deal with, going through law practice. Because obviously there's always going to be stress there, but we don't want it to pile up.
Mm-hmm. It really is. We've always heard that it's the practice of law because you can't really perfect it, but you make it work the way you can work for you. And it sounds like being organized, having trust of your support staff, of being able to communicate. All of those are key indicators I'm hearing from you that gives you the success that you're looking for. But that quality time with the kids at home or your wife and just having some downtime is all of that is just so important. But Johnnie, talk to us a little bit. What are some things away from the law that bring you a lot of joy? What helps you to de-stress? Sports or exercise, reading, going to church? Talk to us about what is Johnnie like?
Well, so I am a huge YouTube person. I think I have completely canceled out television in general. I have watched a couple of Netflix specials over quarantine just because they asked, but I really enjoy the mastermind groups with you guys. I really enjoy talking with you guys, even if we're not talking about law. We talked about Nick earlier. He has a great happy hour that he does on Wednesday nights, not talking about the law, especially during this time of quarantine when we really can't get together. So that's been big. I really enjoy basketball. I'm a big basketball fan, so I'm kind of looking to see what's going to happen with the season. Also, church has always been big in my life. It helps me figure out where I'm at. And when I say that is, I know that there's a meaning behind everything. So, for example, if I'm going through a particular trial in life, I'm going through that trial, I can look back to see what decisions that I made to put myself in that place. But if I can't, if it wasn't anything specific that I did, then I know this is something that I'm being tried on, and that in order to get to the next level, I got to beat that trial. So being able to look into a specific meaning of things is very, very big, especially when you're dealing with people and their problems. Like, this just doesn't feel right. And again, if you made a decision that put you in a bad place, you say, okay, I don't make that decision next time. You're like, hold up, I had absolutely nothing to do with this. So where are we? Who am I here to help? And what do I need to do to get this accomplished? And making sure that I capitalize that lesson and give it to the next person is what I really enjoy. And so over the last 90 days, just talking with all my friends on YouTube, I was able to do some good YouTube interviews with some of the best lawyers in the world. Mitch Jackson, he's been up there. Bernard, I got to get you up there. I was speaking with Miss Attorney Karen Kohler from Washington State, and she's just so inspirational. She was just talking about how she was able to become a great trial lawyer and not being the prototype lawyer. And that's always something that's been big, because I never felt like there was a prototype to actually be a successful lawyer. I just felt like channeling what you have to get to the next place is always great. So yeah, YouTube though, man, I'm just the YouTube junkie at this point.
Well, I'm putting a link to that, and we're getting close to the end of our discussion with Johnnie.
No.
Johnnie, you got Carol Williams says that she gives you a compliment that you are amazing and you're such a giver, but she also says that you are a huge TikTok fan. Is there any truth into that comment?
I think I I got yeah. So Alicia got me into TikTok, and the beginning of quarantine, at least 15 minutes out of the day, I'll go up there and watch little dances. I have a dance coming within the next week. I've been working on this TikTok dance, and it's going to go viral. I'm telling you. I mean, because I can dance. I just had to remember how to dance.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, hopefully.
So my kids and myself, we've been doing practicing dance.
Well, what I'm hearing is that Carol and many others, maybe the Max Law guys, need to have an online Zoom TikTok dance off between you guys. That's so great. Now, Johnny, being in North Carolina, what did you think of the Last Dance documentary about the Jordan and the Bulls final season? Did you get a chance to watch it? Did you like it, or did you have any criticisms of it?
So actually, with the Last Dance, I was not as excited as everybody else because I was a big Knick fan growing up, and Pastor Ewing actually he was contracted to Corona, so we want to keep him in his prayers. One of my favorite basketball players, and I've also said that I don't watch week to week, so I'll give it 4 or 5 shows and then I'll let it catch up. But I have been watching the commentary. What I thought about the Last Dance was that I just really appreciate the business mind of ESPN and the brand of Michael Jordan more than anything else. Mm-hmm. We don't have any live basketball going on, and they have this documentary that they've been sitting on for 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And literally every Sunday night, based off the brand of Jordan and ESPN, puts this documentary together, and it kind of lets us know that we really don't need live sports as much as we think we do, because it definitely gave us something to talk about, something to enjoy. And certainly Michael Jordan is a polarizing figure. And when I watch the portions that I have watched, is just, and I won't say it made me want to be a better person because I know Nick has problems with Michael Jordan. What I will say is it motivated me to dominate in my field more so.
Mm-hmm. There are a lot of takeaways from that documentary. And I suspect without having live sports right now, we may see, I know that there's one on Lance Armstrong that may have just started and some others that are coming. I enjoyed it. I would have liked to have seen some other things within it, but I didn't grow up in North Carolina or wasn't a Bulls fan. I certainly appreciate his talent, learned a lot. But guys, we're almost at the end of our conversation with Johnnie Finch here. And Johnny, what I want to leave you with, or allow you to leave us with, is we're going to get through this pandemic at some point, and every state is rolling out its versions of people getting back into society. What are some of your thoughts? What are you sharing with your family or your colleagues, your friends, about the necessity to be smart, to be patient with all of this? Certainly, this is a daily conversation for all of us, and it may be personal to you, and you can tell me that as well. But just knowing how your mind thinks, and I've loved our conversation so far, I'd love to hear what you have to say about
it. Well, from a personal aspect, it's definitely rearranged the way that I think about doing business, because obviously I've cut a lot of costs. And I thought that one thing that I do well is I keep low overhead when it comes to my business, but just let me know that there were so many costs that I really, really didn't need. Also, just the lack of human contact is really, really big. I think I took that for granted beforehand, hanging out, going to cookouts, Memorial Day, being able to say, hey, let's go grab a snack, but also embrace the Zoom that we have now. And so between the business and actual human interaction, this is something that we can do and we can continue to do. And I know as far as being able to reach out to people and actually build relationships, I think that's been the biggest thing. Calling grandma more, calling uncle more, checking on friends, checking on everybody, making sure you're doing okay. And for the most part, you just, when was the last time you called someone, not text them, talk to them for hours and hours and hours and hours, has really, really been big for me. So just making sure rebuilding those relationships, because when everything gets busy, you're not making those calls, right? And if you are making those calls, it's like, hey, happy birthday, just checking on you, but it's not true conversations, the things and the relationships that you built up until this time. It's kind of working that into your schedule. So that's been my main thing, is making sure that I'm working my relationships back into my schedule, whether it's family, whether it's business, whether it's professional, and continuously hitting on those things, because again, that keeps stress off your back, and you don't want that stress to build up.
No,
even this, I was stressing trying to get out of court today, because this in itself right here, talking to you, is a big stress relief for me. Even though I'm talking about work, it's taking me away from it. Obviously, I see you're doing well. I'm so happy about that. You're such a cool customer, man. Such a cool customer. And so I even calling you today when I couldn't get here on the time when I was like, Johnny, it's okay. Just let me know when you're there. That made me feel so good that you were willing to work with me in that situation, because man, this is a big show, and I've been looking to get up here for a while.
Well, I appreciate your kind words, but you're right. Communications are so important. Even if it's not great information, or if, hey, I'm still running late, that lets the other person know. But I had no stress knowing that you were in court fighting for your clients. We could push this back. We usually start at 10, big deal. We'll start at 12, because I wanted to have this conversation, because these are important. These are good things. I was looking forward to this all day today. So I was going to wait until whenever you were free. So Johnnie, I want to thank you for spending some time and really sharing, not just about the awesomeness that is in this book. And I really, really recommend you guys read it. I put the link to Johnnie's website, to the how do you get the book, and for you guys to consider subscribing to his YouTube channel, which I put a link to that as well. And this will bring us to the end of our awesome conversation with Johnnie Finch today. So thank you, Johnnie.
Thank you. See you guys later.
Absolutely. And guys, as we try to do every Tuesday, Nomberg Law Live, most of the time it's 10 o'clock Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. We've got a series more set up all through this summer. So thank you for spending some time with us. I love all the comments, all the friends who popped in and out over the last 30 minutes. Hope you guys continue to be safe, do the right thing, and we will catch you later in the week. Be well.